Hi everyone, I'm just recording this as well in case others can't make this session, so they can come back and refer to it later on to see what we've been talking about and discussing. This is very informal, I must admit, so please feel free to ask questions, definitely challenge what I'm saying or my thoughts and my ideas. Definitely let's have a conversation about STEM, because I think there's one thing that's actually happening in the STEM field is that there is, not that there's not enough conversation, but there's not enough directive, I feel, as well. So where does it actually come from? What's the idea behind it? And it'd be good to actually get your perspectives on STEM as well, because what you guys are actually thinking and what you actually believe and know in some cases will actually drive STEM. So to give you an idea, and I wouldn't mind actually just running around and having another quick introduction from everyone in the group. My belief actually is like the heart of STEM is engineering and technology. So it was explained to me once, like a fair while ago, that when it comes to actually science and STEM, science is a lot about the discovery. So in the case of toothpaste, they actually worked out the chemical formulas and discovering how it can actually be used and the medical benefits of it. So that a whole lot of it, like stuff come from science there. Obviously, the mathematics side of it is there, is also volumes, how much to be used and everything along those lines. But the engineer, the engineer is the one that actually was able to bring it to market. I find it's like a form of smart design, I usually call it. And this is according to me, you probably won't see it as a definition out there somewhere. But I find it's a form of smart design that allows science and math to come to life. And I think as well, like with that first exercise that we actually did with looking at the technologies and what does it actually mean, I find it really, really interesting that we've got both a NESA, which is the New South Wales curriculum, and we've got an ACARA curriculum, and they still can't define what technology is. It's really, really interesting. And I find, again, like with these discussions and what we're actually doing with STEM, without those definitions and without knowing the direction, we're struggling, like, trying to actually get that background. So like, what I'm trying to get at, when I approach STEM, I actually approach it from an engineering and a design perspective, using technologies to make things come to life. So, but that doesn't mean that that's right. And I wouldn't mind even just starting tonight by just going around and just seeing what your beliefs of STEM are. And the one thing I actually found interesting when I actually did a teach meet once, there was all like technology, science, and mathematical teachers within this room. And I actually asked them, each of them, who should be leading STEM? And it's interesting when you start thinking about that. That gives us some direction of what we're trying to get out of it and what directions we should actually lead into. So if we just want to go around, like Jody, if you want to just give a quick introduction and beliefs, ideas with STEM and see where it takes us.
So I'm Education Officer for Science and STEM at Brisbane Catholic Education. So I'm based in Brisbane, and my role is to support and encourage in science. And so my background is I studied a degree in chemistry and worked in industry for a while, and then went into teaching. So I taught science, and of course, mathematics is another area that I've probably taught just as much maths as I have science. So I guess I come from it from a bit of a science perspective, and find it easy to integrate science and technologies, and sometimes find the mathematics curriculum difficult to be authentic with in a STEM teaching. But amongst the 146 schools that we have in Brisbane Cath Ed, initially we started out saying, having this idealistic view of this integrated curriculum and these massive real world transdisciplinary problem solving PBL type STEM that to define STEM. But what we acknowledged in the end was that everyone starts at a different point, and they start with their strengths, and they start with, they might start with a robotics club after school. And, is that really STEM? Not really, but is it skill building in order for them to perhaps achieve that high level, what we might consider a STEM education? Yes. So let's embrace that, let's encompass that. Let's support schools to do what they can do at that point. Ideally, we'd want it to be a classroom thing, but our secondaries tend to make it an elective because that's how they sort of contain it, which doesn't make sense, because STEM should be able to be part of any classroom, science, technologies, curriculum, or mathematics, whether that's like an inquiry approach or whatever you want to look at it as a problem-based learning kind of pedagogy. But so in the end, we've sort of accepted and embraced everyone and kind of say, okay, where are you at now? And what's your next steps? And how could you expand that? How could you bring in more and make that more than just what it, your robotics club after school, for example? How do we bring in the science? How do we bring it into the classroom and allow it for everybody, not just those who can stay after school or who have an interest, but give everyone an opportunity to think and learn this way. So that's where I'm at with STEM. And I was a bit worried that this unit I thought would have more digital sway. Now, of course, there's software engineers, so I figured that if one of my activities was very digital, that's still considered STEM.
Yeah, and like we'll definitely get onto that as we're going through about what should be included in STEM and in some cases, what shouldn't be included. And I think, again, it's interesting hearing our own ideals. And it comes back to the CARA, or in our case, like NESA, by not actually having a STEM syllabus, by not giving us that guidance, we're all trying to make do with what we can to make it real, to make it, and you're 100% right. Some schools have strengths in one area and some don't. Like I know in the New South Wales curriculum, it's actually possible that you can get through and avoid teaching of the technology side of the syllabus in science and technology, which I think it shouldn't be allowed. But again, based on strengths and everything and resources within the schools and what can actually occur, that's the way it's being delivered. And I'd like to tackle that later on in this as well. Like, again, where do we draw the line on STEM in the sense of the digital technologies versus the design technologies? Because it's quite an interesting challenge to get your head around it. Matt, a little bit about yourself and ideas on STEM.
Yeah, okay. So I actually work within Brisbane Cathode as well. I work as an e-learning leader in a school on the south side. I guess I see STEM as being pretty much wherever you can kind of fit it in. I'm trying very hard to get STEM clubs going at lunchtimes. After school is no good for us, so we try and do it at lunchtimes. And trying to get them going is difficult enough because kids want to go outside and play. So we're a P-12 school, so being able to get the kids interested is hard enough. In terms of trying to get it into the classroom, it's really difficult to try and get a number of teachers interested in doing it together rather than trying to say, oh, well, it's your job or your job. So your question at the beginning there was, where do we start, or what is the central part of STEM? I think it's wherever the strength is within that particular school. Yep. It's not maths should begin it or science should begin it. It's whoever's really the keenest in order to take that and get the ball rolling.
Yep, cool. That's good. Jade.
Yeah, hi. Teacher in Brisbane. Much the same views as Jodie and Matt. It's just about who the community is, what their skill sets are, what they bring, and trying to find the path within that is essentially that. It's it's an interesting field, like you said, without a syllabus and people's varying understandings of curriculum, looking for those opportunities to embed that real life perspective people have very different perspectives on that.
Yep, definitely. And that real life perspective actually comes into play in some ways as well, like in that sense of if we try to force it and it's not necessarily real, like then again, like the quality of education versus student interest, uptake and experience, like it's quite a bit of a minefield when we go down that path. No, it's good. I like that idea. Natalie, I see you're having a bit of trouble jumping in and out. Are you with us now?
Hi, sorry, yes, I've got my computer here, which is only on 4%. So I'm also following it with my phone.
So
sorry about that. I'm waiting for my laptop to charge, and I was just wanting to make sure that I was still on it with my phone. So I've got both. That's why there's two people coming up here. So yeah, I'm Natalie Benson. I work at Unity College at Caloundra. I am the STEM specialist teacher for junior years up there. Yeah, I've had a really enjoyable time up there. I started off as digital technologies and have just recently gotten my own classroom, so have the makerspace and have been able to create a whole heap of different activities with more of a STEM overview. So I go through what the students are doing in STEM in their classrooms, and then I write unit plans around what they're studying in that to make it more integrated into what I'm doing. So that way there's a bit of an overlap there with what they're doing in the classroom as well as what I'm doing up in my room.
Unity College, is that a Catholic
ecumenical college, Catholic college, so between Uniting Church and Catholic. It's under BCE heading though. So yeah, up at Caloundra. Cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some orientation, like in the sense of schools and everything, because I'm not sure you guys are aware of STEM Mad then as well, like coming up. Yeah. And like we've had a whole lot of conversations around STEM Mad as well, about what it should look like and what it should actually be. Very much the pro forma, like on what's actually required, is a design layout. And again, it's quite interesting, like where does the science and the math fit into that? Like you can see the technology and the engineering when you're talking about design theories and bringing it all together, but is it actually fair to science and math? Like when we're talking about this as being a competition. And I was arguing as part of our Parramatta Diocese group that we should be able to argue that like a scientific thesis, why can't we consider that as just being part of STEM in itself? Like, do we actually need all the other acronyms to make it work? Or is it like, and also the solving of mathematical problems, like there's some brilliant stuff going on at the moment, like with the Mars rover, for example, and I know I'm talking NASA here, but the idea that they have to calculate the rotation in that form of gravity with that sort of chemical composition in the air to make it go so much faster. Like there's a whole lot of math going on there, and why can't we actually use it that way as well and consider that collaboration in STEM, which is one thing they'd like us all to teach as well, like making sure they work together. Like, why can't it be that in itself? So yeah, like I said, I find it really interesting, the STEM space, because we don't have like a government direction. We don't have, when it comes to actual syllabus learning, it turns into an elective that doesn't exist. In New South Wales, like I'm talking secondary here specifically as well, the iSTEM syllabus, which was a really good attempt at trying to bring things together, that's being in 2 years' time, that fades out. We're not allowed to use it anymore if you want recognition for what you've studied. And it really takes us to that situation where we need to be proactive and strategic in what we actually do with this, in the way that we actually go. So a lot of the work that I'm actually doing is in the design technology space, specifically for the engineering side or the technology side there. But it's also deliberately incorporating science and mathematic outcomes to make it a real STEM experience. And that's where the first task has come from. That idea of being deliberate in combining science and math within engineering. Now, whether that project, like when you're talking about the technology, that could actually form part of the direction that you actually go. So if it's a digital technology, that's fine. It could be a materials.
Digital product is okay.
Yeah.
Product.
Yeah. See, like I said, the way that they actually work the New South Wales syllabus is that they break it down into materials, engineering, we've got a digital component, and then food and agriculture. Now, that's the technology side of things. So you can actually do anything within those technologies. So if you were doing a STEM project with food, so say example, your science might be
food and fiber. We have food and fiber as an Australian curriculum, as a strand. What do you call it? Not strand. It's under the engineering.
Design technologies. Yeah. So like if I was actually doing a food project, I'd then be looking at food in the body as the science. Mathematics, you can do calculations based on energy consumptions. Your technology is actually food, and the engineering side of it is that design, it's that creation. So we have, again, when you start looking at all the different areas of engineering, it's huge, it just grows. And we need to be, like I said, be a bit strategic in our approach in trying to work out what we can actually do with those projects. But yeah, it's that deliberate action of trying to combine everything and trying to make it work, see those links between the acronym, which gives us not necessarily a quality of project, because I think you can get a good project by missing one of the acronyms. But if you approach it that the engineering is the smart design, because engineering wouldn't exist without science and math, and for that matter, technology. I actually see engineering as the thief. It actually steals from all the others to make it a reality. So again, when looking, sorry?
We had a guest scientist at the, I organised a STEM symposium in 2019 with BC at the Convention Centre and with my manager at the time. And one of our guest speakers, who's a scientist, a nanoscientist,
right.
And he said that their discoveries that they came across were so interesting and amazing, but it wasn't until they worked with the engineers that they became life-changing. And that's actually were able to apply that knowledge and that science, and it was fantastic stuff. But without the engineering, it wasn't making a difference.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You look at the unfortunate thing I actually find with all of this is that all the hard work is done in science and math. And then the engineer or the designer comes through, pinches it and makes the dollars out of it, which I think is the shame. That's why I say the engineer is the thief, because they actually capitalize on these ideas and make it real for the world. And that's the way that I actually approach it.
Can I ask about like the practical activities? Are
Yep.
they so would they then be ideas that we've come up, problem that we can find, the problem that and then an activity is to solve that problem? So is it to be set up, the folio of the 6 practical activities, are they just like those card that you showed us?
Yeah.
Or that's just how it is, not actual design process of how that will happen in a classroom necessarily?
Okay. I'll share my screen now, so we can just have a look at that as well. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing that sort of flipper card set up for the actual task.
Yes.
The whole idea,
so it has a problem. It has a problem. Oh, well, I don't know. How can we mimic? In a sense, that's a design thinking question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, again, the engineering side of it, even if you're thinking along a PBL project style of thing, that's where the engineering comes in. It's the one that ties it all together to bring it to life. So when you look at STEM MAD, and I'm talking that terms because we understand it, that step-by-step process of bringing it to life, I would consider engineering.
Yeah.
And it's the same here, like especially when we're talking in like primary and secondary schools, it's that structure around bringing something to life is what I would consider engineering. I know that There's actual engineering studies courses that you do, and it goes into massive mathematics and science, material science and everything. But I actually see we've got math as part of the acronym and science as part of the acronym. We don't need to bring that into engineering. The one thing that makes engineering stand alone is that design process, or it could be the equivalent of the PBL process. And in my case, when I'm teaching design and technologies, it's a design process used through there. So for each of these,
science often comes into the testing. Like if you think of design process as the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, test, that defining part is often the research science, and the testing part's often the science. Science comes in there too, but the mathematics can sometimes, the level of mathematics sometimes for the problem can elude me. Like the one that I read about the rockets, I can't remember which one was that, Matt, did the rockets response about in year 2, and I in the discussion board.
Yeah, I remember reading that. It was like that was a really great
we did
project.
that in year 8. We did a bit of rocket science in year 8, fair testing of rockets, water rocket, different kinds of rockets. But year 2, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I was actually like blown away.
I don't know how much they would understand of it, but
yeah, I'd put up there, I think, about water rockets for year 9. I mentioned.
Yeah,
but not for year 2. No way.
No, someone had year 2, and I just went, no.
You'd actually be quite surprised though with some of the things that are actually happening in schools. And it's great to have these conversations to know what's happening in the primary level. I know in the
Stealing our thunder sometimes.
Well, I know in the like New South Wales curriculum, there's also huge jumps between different areas. Like in New South Wales, it's the high school system starts in 7 and 8. I believe high school starts in year 8 for Queensland.
7 now. We've come on board. We've caught up. We're always a bit slow here in Queensland, but we have caught up for the last few years.
But and again, like you were saying, that stealing of thunder without having sort of a timeline of where we should be focusing our attentions. It is possible that you might get an accelerated group that could do some of that work with rockets at early ages. And like you said, though, whether a whole class would understand it or not would be interesting to see the data and statistics there.
Yeah, with all the feeder schools, often it's very inconsistent. Even what you get in high school, what experiences they've had.
And definitely, I think in the digital side of technologies, we can really see that with coding.
Oh yes,
like there's some kids that are just running berserk with it, and others like they're just looking at it as another language. So the way that I actually approached like this project and the development of it, love that idea of
ideas that we've so really they need to be something that they're not because I'm doing another subject at the same time to finish the certificate, and they want you to take an activity that's available online and critique it in a sense. And whereas this is, you come up with your own and create the links.
Yes.
You're a designer of it rather than you find one and talk about it.
Yep. And then your critical reflection is about, was it easy? Was it hard? Where are the gaps?
Yeah.
So that's the main thing there. Like it's
already hard.
It is like, and I think like challenging like people to think, and especially, and I love doing this sort of thing because like it puts me back into the student side of things. Like what are our students actually going through when we're pushing that? We want you to think about it rather than jumping on Google and grabbing the answers.
So that the 6 practical, I see it's worth 30%, the first part for the 6 practical activities.
Yep.
That are created like that. That's the what you're showing us here on the screen. So that's how you display those activities. That's the style. I'm not fussed on style as such. The main thing is that we're actually going how we can integrate the 4 different areas. So like this is one method. If you've got another way of presenting it, it's however best you can communicate it. It works. And so they need to cover I mean, different aspects of that need to be design and digital. They all have to have obviously technologies curriculum in them, and they have to have a science link and the maths link and as well.
Yep.
And so it's got on here, it's got digital and design separate. So it's got all 4 links. So that's what.
Yep. So with this one here, like obviously science and math, working our numeracy in there, science, experiment, and discovery with the world. Here again, like I said, this would be mainly like for the engineering side of things, would be mainly looking at the design process to be used. Like an engineering process to bring it to life. Like I said, if we're doing it properly, engineering can't exist without science and math anyway. So just to keep it logical at the moment, it would be more like a PBL process, might be one that's a collaborative PBL process, or it might be a STEM MAD process you could actually use if you wanted to design something for that. And the technology though is the materials that we're actually using. So digital technologies would fall under this one here. You might find it's a material technology. It could also be food and fiber. So those different ones there can actually fit in here, or it might even be a system. So like an engineering system where you're looking at designing new roads around Brisbane to accommodate the growth in traffic. I'm just thinking off my head there.
Product, environment, or what's the other one? There's
Food
3.
and fiber.
No. You create either a product, an environment, or a
system.
Is it a system? I'll write that down. I always forget the third one.
Yeah. So science and math to actually come back, like to bring it back to the STEM acronym with the technology and the engineering. The main thing here is like with this one is like, again, looking at the importance of the cross curriculum, how that can actually fit in. So if I come to, so these are the capabilities that we're actually looking at through ACARA, and NESA has the similar ones that are actually there. I think they've got another 3 that they actually add in, like civics and citizenship, intercultural understanding. So just little ones that not necessarily will affect you. If you were doing a New South Wales syllabus, I'd say cross-check it. But seeing you're doing the national one, these are the ones that we're sort of looking at. So where can we actually fit these in to make sure that we're catering for the needs of all of our students, whether or not it's like the critical and creative thinking for our gifted students, or is it even just like developing ethical understanding about why we should or shouldn't be doing something? So it's a matter of employing these. And you'll see on the bottom of the this one here, just a little section there to show how we can actually use them and just indicate why they'd be important for that project. So literally, first page, overview of the project. Second one, breaking it down to each of the acronyms like of STEM, and then linking it back to that cross-curricular to show how we can actually make those capabilities come to life as well in the work we're doing.
Can I ask about part B? What kind of word count approximately does that look like? Is that like more like a 1,500 word type reflection?
Yeah, I'd say like 1,000 to 1,500. I think if you go over that, you're probably working too hard. Do you guys have the key words in like in your curriculum? Like, do you actually focus on those in the high school area?
What do you mean, the cognitive verbs or the, what do you mean?
What we actually have in NESA is what they actually, that's the wrong one there. Where is it? Glossary of key words. So when we actually state what yep.
Don't we call that the cognitive verbs? QCAA's cognitive verbs? Is that right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's quite interesting. So
cognitions, we call them. And the senior syllabuses too. QCAA senior syllabus.
Yeah, like the way that's actually the rubric's actually been structured when you come into it here. you can actually see that I've started to do the key words, justify, explain. So they're going down. So as long as you've got a great understanding that that's the way that I'm actually approaching it. Are you getting to the critically evaluate level? So are you passing judgment and showing knock-on effects? And are you justifying it by going, I had these options and this is the best? So I just wanted to make sure that that was quite clear as well in the marking, because in pretty much like what I see with these, when we're getting to these higher levels of terms, it's about us thinking about things rather than being able to come down here and describe something by doing a Google search and embedding it into the work itself. So yeah, through thinking and thoughts, and it's basically creating this academic argument which will get you the marks to show understanding.
The 6 activities, they can be all different year levels and any year levels. Like I could do a year 5 one, a year 6 example, year 10 example, year 9. Is that all right? That's all right.
And the idea is hopefully we can share all those amongst us as well. And then that way we'll have like this portfolio of possible projects that we can pass on to other people that we're working with. Yep. So again, like that sharing, and I'm into the collaboration.
It didn't say on that particular one. Oh, it did say, so it's on a different document, not the one you showed, but a different document that was linked to the one you showed. It mentions the year level 4. It said year 7 or 8, actually. Wasn't specific curriculum.
Yeah, this one here was so this one's actually a stage 4 project, year 7 and 8. And
very different. It's a very different thinking, because it's year 7 or it's year 8 with the understanding curriculum, because it would link differently in year 8 science, for example, than in year 7. There's inquiry skills and human endeavor, which is across year 7, a band, year 7 and 8, but the actual understanding part, which you might want to link it, would be different in year 7 and 8 for us.
Okay, so this is where the one thing,
But not in technologies, because they're banded, but in science and maths they're not banded in one strand, in particular strands.
Okay, so when it comes to engineering, this is the heart. So like with this here, we're looking at like basing everything on the technologies.
Yeah, so if design and technologies looks different to the digital. So if you go into design, it's banded, whereas in science it's not banded.
Yep.
So for knowledge.
Yep. So generally with engineering, if it was an engineering project coming out of the school, because we're doing technology and engineering, it's based on these technologies, the design technologies and the digital technologies. So when we're looking at it, I'd actually form it around a 3-4 project, 5-6.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like form it that way. That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, that's where the narrowing comes down. And it's the same with these ones here. Like this is stage 3, stage 4, stage 5 in the New South Wales one. So that's where I've got that word from. Okay. But yeah, if you base it on these, and then add the science and the math to it. And what I also find as well is that sometimes you might go a year above or a year below in the science and math. So like with this project here, I'll come back to this one here. This is very specific to geology and the earth. So when I actually went looking for, where is it here? Do I have it? I've actually got it as a Word document. There's another link there with a Word document. And I actually went through different stages to find where does the science live or where does the math live that can complement this project. So while this is a year 7 project, you might not find it's year 7 science. It might be a year 9, 10, or it might even be a 5, 6. Okay. But it's supporting that learning and, like, again, creating the connections between.
Yeah, we have the dilemma with that, with our when it comes to reporting. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, you guys are reporting on STEM, are you? Or
well, if students are doing it as a subject, as an elective, for example, in secondary, then it's been reported on. But of course, you can't report on something that doesn't have standard. So they have to report, therefore, they have to get a science, a technologies, and a mathematics mark.
Wow.
So, and then, so there's supposed to be say that, so against those standards, they need to get a mark against those standards that then they can possibly get an overall grade for STEM based on their marks that were a link to the curriculum for their year level. It's a bit tricky. But what I have encouraged a few schools, and they've done successfully, is that when they've got an elective, for example, a 9-10 elective, so they've banded the students anyway, and they start out the first semester, they spend on skill building in science, skill building in technologies, skills like coding and developing and designing and building, and the design thinking process, skill building in science understanding and science skills, testing, fair testing, and mathematics skills as well. And then in second semester, they use those skills to come up with a solution to a problem. And so you can get a bit of a mark along the way for their science and a mark along the way for their technologies. And then there's that's one way it's structured.
And again, like what you just,
there's no assessment or reporting in a club.
yeah,
You can do what you want.
and again, like what you just said was pretty much your critical reflection, I'd actually say as well. Like that's actually quite a great point that I wasn't aware of in your system as such. So that'd be a great critical reflection in the difficulties that you face in creating these STEM projects. But yeah, and I think like in some ways, the other thing I'm big on is if we're actually doing this work, making sure we can use it. So like, while I've done it this way, if you need to adapt and create it to suit your own needs, please do, so that it's actually work that we can actually put into our schools and use with our students. So yeah, it's more a case of showing how the interaction happens and thinking about the cross-curricular layout, format, and all of that sort of thing. I leave to you to actually make it work with your schools.
Because it's a lot more in depth, actually, which is.
And again, like it's, and part of it might actually be in some cases, like in making it work. In some, like I know it might be difficult to fit the 4 in. So if you're struggling with the 4, then yeah, please definitely get 3 in as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just quickly have a look at this rubric so we can make sure that we understand everything there. And like I said, the main thing here is you can see 6, 5, 4. So as we're going down, you can see the mark ranges. This is holistically marked as well. So while you might have 6 here or, and then come into this different box, basically from there, it'll be averaged out as well. So it doesn't mean that you need to get, what am I trying to say? Like here, like you might find a 25 would be a combination of these two, depending on how it's actually done. And like I said, I'll be putting up the feedback to show you reasons why I'm actually saying it's in that block. But you can see that as you're going down, the level of keyword is dropping. The only other things to look out for is the and, focus on technology and engineering. So again, they go pretty much hand in hand, but if we look at this as being the process and this one being the product, system or environment, the materials that we're actually using, then they'll work together in that format. And then, yep, coming down, like I said, with a reflection, 1,000, 1,500 words be definitely adequate to actually do this. I'd say if you're going above 1,500, or even if I'd say like 1,200, I think you're working a little bit too hard, especially with everything that we've got to do in our daily life. So 1,000 words to 1,200 would be good. And then looking at the idea of justifying, here is my choices and this is the reasons why. Catering for the diverse needs, that's actually looking at that capabilities and making sure that we're meeting a number of those. The cross-curricular as well. And because literacy and numeracy is quite important, we just sort of added that in there as well to make sure that we are considering that as part of our reflection, making sure that we understand that, that they're quite important in any job skills that we actually do in that way. So, yeah.
So that's where reference to readings comes into the part B, not because I didn't see any referencing in part A. No.
Part A is generation of like our ideas.
Yeah.
So there's like, again, with this one here, this, like with the other document that's actually there, let's go back here. The next one.
Might reference the ACARA or something.
Yeah.
I've got that one. We've got the science. That's questioning, predicting, planning, investigations, that sort of stuff. That's all the ACARA referencing, but not professional readings. Science.
No, so basically with this one here, it's generation of original ideas. And if you're looking at referencing in some way, shape or form, it'll come through your critical reflection to go. The national curriculum documents actually is, or in your case with the work that you're doing there, where STEM is an elective and you need to actually have each of those different elements, like you explained earlier. Again, just refer back to that. But pretty much with this one here, it's, of course, it's original, and of course, we're generating it ourselves, unless you're actually innovating an existing idea. So you might actually find something that's already on the net, then we should be really referencing other people to then show that how we can make it a better project or how it's been improved. Happy for that to happen as well. So I know how difficult creativity can be. And I know what like roadblocks come in when we start thinking along that way. So definitely happy for you to innovate an existing project as well. And that's where your referencing would come in. Based on this project, this is what's been created. Yep. So I think that's pretty much it. I had different things about STEM jobs here in the future of jobs and everything like that. But judging by our conversation, I think we're all pretty much on a similar page and have a similar understanding in about how it actually comes together. Just a final thing from me before we can open up to discussion. I'm happy to keep going. These Zooms weren't intended in this course. I was told it's pretty much like an online format. However, if anyone wants to meet at any time, please feel free, drop me a line. Happy to set up a Zoom to discuss issues that you're finding in the course, or if more guidance is needed or anything along those lines. So thank you for those that did reach out and say, like that guidance. And I'll probably suggest it to the university as well, that definitely around the assessment task time, there should be some other form of Zoom set there so we can actually get together and explain things. Even an introductory one at the beginning of the course, I think would probably be helpful as well. So that's great feedback, and I am listening to it, and I will instigate it for future years as it comes around. So that's.
Well, I have one more question.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
The hurdle tasks.
Yep.
Are they're not every week. They're just how many hurdle tasks are there?
Oh, it's mainly like when it comes around to the assessment, like if it's tied to the assessment, I'm not wanting you to do double work. I'd much rather if you're actually doing some work and you want some feedback, send it to me and I'll give you feedback.
Oh, no, so as part of the assessment, there's a pass-fail that we have to submit hurdle tasks throughout the unit. One of them was at the beginning, it was like a submission, a response to the discussion.
Yep.
And so I submitted a response, but I don't think I've seen another hurdle task come up.
Basically, they're the discussion boards.
Yes. So how many discussion boards have we got?
Like I said, I'd have to go over.
It's not on every week. It's not. I haven't seen a discussion board for every week.
No. So at the moment, like over the next 3 weeks, I believe it is. Of course, we're focusing on developing the assessment task. The discussion boards have been removed so that you can focus on that.
Okay. The only reason is because I'm doing this other unit and it's just so different, and they have this massive discussion board every single week, and it's not even a hurdle task. It's not worth anything, actually. Not worth marks, and it's not a hurdle task. So I was just checking if
that's what I feel. I feel like we've got to be using them for good. I don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
So that's why it's only the discussions are the hurdle tasks, and only when we really need to sort of break down a thought or an idea like that. The first one on technology.
Yeah.
I really find it interesting, like until you actually start reading what technology is supposed to be, where it's come from, it doesn't challenge us what we actually our understanding is. So, yep. So you'll see them as discussion boards. They're the hurdle tasks. If they're not there in the week, it's basically time for you to work on your project rather than go into those massive discussions.
Yeah, which is 2 weeks. No, not even that. Week and a half is due.
Yeah, roughly about that time, yeah.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. I should let other people ask questions because I've asked a lot of questions. Sorry. But thank you for clarifying all of that because I wasn't sure what I was doing.
No, that's fine. And like I said, if you require any feedback, like generate the first task, send it through to me. Happy to look at it and give you my feedback and opinion and where it actually sits in the scale. So definitely.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Matt, Jade, Natalie, you got questions?
No, I'm all good, but thank you very much, Jody. You were a big help. You asked most of the questions I had written down for today, so thanks for that. So
Cool.
Yeah, no, I'm all good. It's, you clarified everything that I need clarifying, so it was great. Thank you.
Excellent. Great. Good.
Yes, thank you. Answered all the questions.
You're breaking up a little bit, Jade, but I think I heard it's all good here. So I think that's the right message. But yeah, please, if you've got if you wish any feedback, another Zoom, shoot me an email, let me know, and I'm happy to open it up at any time that you require it.
okay, thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you guys. Thanks. Nice meeting
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.